Good evening. Good evening. I'm Monroe Woods, um, Vice President of West Tennessee for the Tennessee State Conference of NAACP. My pleasure to welcome you to the State Conference for NAACP's 74th Annual State Convention and Civil Rights Advocacy Training Institute. Vote, our lives depend on it. We know that for sure, don't we? We're elated to have you in attendance for this virtual event this evening as we discuss and share information about some most timely projects and topics. At this time, we're going to get ready for a discussion on the role and workings of the Tennessee Human Rights Commission and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. We're honored to have with us two people that are more than capable and equipped to provide us with the information we need on these two subjects. I've had the pleasure of knowing both of them for a while. One of our presenters this evening will be Ms. Beverly Watts, whom I've known a little longer than I have our other presenter. And I've had the pleasure, actually, of working with Ms. Watts in the past. She is extremely well prepared and equipped for the position that she holds and also for this presentation this evening. She's, just to give you a couple of items about her, she worked in Chicago with the Midwest region of the U.S. Department of Agriculture for a number of years and was responsible for the workings of 6 states in the Midwest region, including Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. From there, she spent some time, in Kentucky, working in the state of Kentucky for the state of Kentucky. And then Tennessee was fortunate to have an opportunity to have her to come home in a sense, and is now working, heading up is the executive director for the Tennessee State Human Rights Commission. Beverly is a graduate of Tennessee State University, got a master's from Southern Illinois University, did some studying at Duke University and also at Harvard in an executive development leadership school, the John F. Kennedy School of Government, as a part of the John F. Kennedy School of Government. So she will be presenting tonight, and we're thankful, Beverly, that you were able to make the time to be with us, and we look forward to hearing from you a little later in this session. Other presenter as a part of this program is Delano Franklin Thomas. Delano Franklin Thomas is head of the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission in the Memphis District Office. Prior to that time, she was in Birmingham, Alabama, heading up that office. She comes also well equipped and prepared to do some great things, share some information with us as well. During her tenure as director of the Birmingham District, Ms. Franklin Thomas served as a member of the Executive Resource Review Board, which serves as an advisor to the EEOC chair and provided general oversight of the management of all executive resources. Co-chair of the Committee for Advisory of Systematic Enforcement, which serves to evaluate and make recommendations for EEOC systematic programs, and a member of Executive Committee, and as chair of the Peer Review Board. She has been in Memphis, heading that office up for the last 2 years, and has come also well equipped and prepared. She's a graduate of Yale University, and Columbia University School of Law. And so at a distance, and let's give both of our speakers and presenters a big round of applause. And we will start off, Ms. Franklin, with you, Franklin Thomas, with you. If you would then share with us information concerning the some updates and all the happenings that's going on with the EEOC.
Well, thank you very much. It's really great to be here this afternoon. Bev and I had talked a couple of days ago, and I'm just giving a shout out. It's good to see her, and certainly Mr. Woods. It is quite a pleasure to see you, even though it is virtually. It's great to see your face again. I'm gonna say I need to get that recipe that you got going on. You look younger than you did the last time I saw you in person, but it's great to be here this afternoon. And for those of you who are just joining us, I just want to give a brief roadmap as to how we're traveling this afternoon again. I am Delner Franklin Thomas. I'm the district director of the Memphis district of the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I will be presenting on the status of our operations. Once I complete my presentation, I'll be passing the baton to my friend and colleague, Beverly Watts, who's the executive director of the Tennessee Commission of Human Rights Commission. Once we complete our updates, we'd love to engage you with whatever questions you have regarding what's going on with reference to our state of operations. One of the things that I want to start with is that there is a lot going on. And I know that you all know that there's a lot going on. And a lot of times when there is a lot going on with us personally, the world at large, especially in the context of COVID-19, this pandemic, we tend to forget that there are other things that are going on that also impact how we live from day to day. And so this afternoon, I'm especially appreciative and delighted to engage with you because the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is the agency that is charged with the enforcement of the federal employment anti-discrimination laws. And it's very important, especially in these times, that you, the NAACP, is up to date on what's going on with us, so that as our stakeholders engage in the workplace, you're in the here and now in the context of what the agency is doing and what you can do as our partner to help us ensure that we are doing what we're supposed to do as an enforcement agency. Just to be clear, EEOC enforces Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination because of race, sex, religion, color, national origin. We enforce the age statute, which prohibits discrimination for individuals who are 40 years and older. The Americans with Disability statute, that statute prohibits discrimination in employment for folks who have disabilities. The statute says that we need to not hire folks just because they have a disability. We don't want to exclude them. And if we can accommodate them without it being a hardship or presenting a direct threat, we need to do that as employers. We enforce GINA, which is the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. And that act, just to be clear, protects those of us with reference to our genetic history. Folks asking information when we're seeking employment that they shouldn't be asking, so that they can gauge, oh, is this person going to be a big liability to me because they have high blood pressure or because their family have a history of it. So those are the sorts of things that's covered under GINA. Then we prohibit discrimination under the Equal Pay Act of 1963. And that statute prohibits discrimination against men and women who are discriminated with wages, who are doing similarly, pretty much the same job. So you want to be aware of that statute as well. So now, with reference to us on a national front, one of the things that I want to point out is that as recent as last Wednesday, this agency swore in Keith E. Sutherland as EEOC's commission and vice chair. That's significant because the commission is a bipartisan 5-commission body. With the swearing in of this vice chair, the commission is now at 4. We have our chair, Janet Dillon, now vice chair Keith Sutherland. He was nominated by President Trump on July 17th of 2019, renominated in March of 2020, and was ultimately confirmed by the Senate this past September 22nd, and was just sworn in, as I said, last Wednesday. He also joins Charlotte Burrows and Victoria Lipnick. So our commission is now at a 4-body operation with 1 vacancy being there. Our fiscal year runs from October 1 through September 30th. That means that we're just now closing down fiscal year 20. With that being said, the numbers with reference to charges, et cetera, during fiscal year 20 are still being reviewed. But what I can tell you, when we look at fiscal year 2019, nationally, statistically, the number of charges that we received, when you look at the categories that we covered that came in, retaliation was the largest number of charges. Nationally, we received 39,000 and some charges alleging retaliation. That was 53% of the charges that the agency received. Disability, claims of disability discrimination was the second largest, 24,000, and then some, which was about 33% of the number of charges that came in. Nationally, race was the 3rd largest with 23,900, and sex was the next, 23,500, with age discrimination being in 5th place, and that was 15,000, about 10,000 less than the sex charges that came in. And that's on a national level. I'd like to slow down and look at us in Tennessee with reference to what the charges of discrimination looked at like in 2019. And when we looked at us in Tennessee, it pretty much mirrored the national statistics. Retaliation was the largest number of charges that came in Tennessee. There was 1,300. The second largest was race, which was 889, almost 890 charges. Now, I will say what's significant here is in Tennessee, you had a large number of race, sex was the 3rd, and disability was the 4th largest. Now, that's where the difference comes in. On the national level, the largest number of charges coming in was after retaliation was disability, whereas in Tennessee, it was race discrimination, sex, and disability came in 4th, with age being the 5th largest number of charges that the agency received. And I will continue to say that retaliation, that's what you see when I say it mirrors the national numbers across the board. Retaliation is picked up in all of the statutes that we enforce. What you see there is that folk believe that it's my sense when people believe that they've been discriminated against and they complain, employers discriminate. And a lot of times it's not so much that people know, but it's like my daughter says, it makes you feel some kind of way when people say stuff about you that you don't feel is true. And so, but you can't go and treat people differently just because they filed a charge of discrimination. What that puts you in a place that even if the claim that you brought had no merit, if you then go and change their terms and conditions of employment because they complain, they then have a cause of action for the retaliation. So as you work with your stakeholders, be aware that people have a right that rests solely within the claim of retaliation. If you file the charge, you have the right to file it without fearing that you're going to somehow now suffer different terms and conditions of employment adverse actions because you chose to raise issues of concern with your employers. Now, I'm gonna dial back to March of this year. We all know the world changed as we know it operationally because of COVID-19. And I want to say, as far as the commission was concerned, the world changed for us too, but we did not close our doors and stop doing business. Essentially, on or about March 17th of this year, we implemented 100% telework. We closed all of our doors nationwide. This allowed us to put our staff in safe places and to work remotely. What that means for us as an agency, we continue to take charges remotely. Folks can file charges using our portal, writing in. We interview folks via phone. We are open and doing business. So, and the time frame continues to run. So when you're talking with individuals about what, if anything, that they can do, they need to move on it because the time period continues to run. We continue to conduct charge intake, and it's mostly by phone. We continue to hold mediation sessions, and that's via virtual platforms. When I have reference to the mediations, we have a program that we say, look, if you want to come forward and try to resolve this matter without going through a full investigation, we'll try to work with you to resolve that. So we're doing this virtually. We're conducting our investigations remotely. It's not unusual for an employer to call individuals who file their charges, talk with them, talk with their witnesses, use platforms. We are using Teams, Microsoft Teams largely, engage employers, conduct on-sites, all of those things we're doing virtually so that we can move claims of discrimination. We're issuing determinations that the law has been violated based upon those investigations. I will say there was a brief period of time between March and late August that we did not issue out any findings of discrimination because there was concern with reference to whether folks would be able to timely advance matters in the court. So we suspended issuing our findings for some few months, but beginning in late August through and moving forward, we started to push out our findings of discrimination. So folks getting the findings are expected to move those matters in court so that they can continue their rights if they disagree with the agency's findings. From an outreach perspective, we continue to do outreach. Just like we're talking with you now, we basically do outreach via virtual platforms, Microsoft Teams, and we do it via Zoom. So we're essentially making ourselves available so that the public, if you have questions, concerns, if you want us to come and do presentations at your individual branches, we're open and doing business, making sure that you are aware of what's going on with the agencies and what our latest guidances are. We issued COVID-19 guidance on or about March 29th, held a webinar to address the common questions that were arising as employers and employees grappled with this, and we continue to follow up. And I'd like to emphasize, you can always go to our webpage at eeoc.gov, and when you get there, there is right in your face a section that deals with COVID-19, and it gives you the latest updates with reference to what the agency is doing. During this past year, the agency under Chair Dillon also issued guidance regarding 2 pilots that the agency is undertaking. One of the pilots deal with mediation. You may recall that as far as mediation is concerned, normally with reference to the EEOC, if you engage in mediation, we're asking you to get involved in the mediation process early on. We give you 30 days to say that you're interested as a result of the pilot. What we say to folks now is that you can tell us that you're interested in mediation at any time, and we will look to engage that process with the employer. So I think that's important to know, because a lot of times when you come into the intake process, the investigator will ask the charging party, are you interested in mediating? If the charging party says at that time that they're not interested, then the process moves on. But based upon this pilot, you can continue to ask for it, even if you didn't ask for it during the initial process of the investigatory stage. The same thing with reference to the employer. At any point in time during the investigatory process, you can ask for mediation. The other pilot that the agency established had to do with conciliation. The only thing that changed there was that the chair asked that the dollars amounts that the agency is asking for to resolve a matter, that matter is reduced to writing and communicated, and that our analysis as far as how we got to the dollar amount is set forth in the correspondence that we have with the employer. The idea here is the big C, communication. If we're putting out there clearly, slowly, there is no confusion as to what it is that we're asking for and why. So those are two pilots that from the chair's perspective will help us resolve a lot more charges quicker and short of moving into the litigation process. There are a couple of other things that I'd like to share with you with reference to our actions in the court. I'll say that in September, we filed 2 lawsuits. One of the lawsuits was against Kroger, and that lawsuit was for religious discrimination. Essentially, it was a failure, it was again, retaliation for failure to engage in the interactive process with reference to religious accommodation. We had employees who basically worked in the deli department who claimed that the new apron that Kroger had an emblem that they believe projected LGBT rights, and because of their religion, they didn't want to wear it. They asked if they could put a pin over it, if they could bring another apron, several things that they asked as an accommodation that they could do. Instead of talking with the employees to try to work out an accommodation, it's EEOC's position that they in turn terminated the employee. We advanced the litigation saying that while we respect LGBT rights, we also expect employers to engage in the interactive process to see if it's an undue hardship to grant an accommodation to folks who are asking for it because of their religious beliefs. The other lawsuit that the agency filed in September of this year was against Lexus of Cool Springs in the Nashville area. Essentially, that was a sex discrimination lawsuit. Essentially, it's our contention that a male manager showed up and upon arrival, subjected women consultants to different terms and conditions of employment than similarly situated male co-workers. And in his first 3 months on the job, this service director replaced the women and discharged another woman who had leave and we, from our perspective, said that this was discrimination based upon their sex. So those were 2 lawsuits that we filed during this past September. Also on September 30th, the agency resolved a lawsuit against Bryce Corporation out of Memphis. And that again was an equal pay lawsuit. You heard me say earlier at the beginning of the presentation, we cover equal pay. Is our contention when we filed the lawsuit that the female was paid $18,000 less than her male counterpart. Soon after the filing, we resolved the suit for $50,000 and a consent decree that required training, posting, and hopefully putting we are open to do training for you. You can always go to eeoc.gov to see our updates. And I'd like to now pass it off to my colleague, Beverly Watts.
Good evening. Got it. Technology works when you know what you're doing. It's always a pleasure to be with the NAACP. So let me just jump right in and talk about where we are from last year this time. And then let me sort of talk about a few things. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about housing than employment. But our relationship with the EEOC is we're their partners. Under a memorandum of agreement, we have the right to investigate claims of discrimination, dual file both with the THRA and the EEOC. So we do have, quote unquote, some federal authority, and we do investigate dual file charges of discrimination. So that's our relationship, and we continue to do that. We also have a lot of THRC only cases, and I think last year I shared with you, we had one case, and it was a THRC only, and it was a dental office in which the dental assistant accused the owner, the dentist, of sexually harassing her. And we took it to hearing. The hearing officer agreed with our findings and issued a finding in the amount of $25,000. And our commission confirmed that last year. Our fiscal year ends June 30th and begins July 1st of the previous year. But let me talk a little bit about one of the important things and to say thank you. Every year, or every so often, it seems, we're calling upon you all to help us as we look at and deal with our sunset review. This year's sunset review was a very interesting and turbulent time. We got in December a recommendation that we'd be extended for 5 years, so we were cautiously happy. Then they came into session, and we got optimistically uncertain about what was going to happen. So of course we called on you all. President Sweetlove and others came to the Capitol, made presentations, and we sort of went on a roller coaster ride. This was in February. As you know, in March we closed down. Just before we closed down, we're pleased to say that the House gave us a passage of 84-6 for that extension for 5 years. The Senate did not vote. Well, that was the beginning. We left in March, and we left around March 15th or so, or March 20th. The legislature came back into session in April and again in June. And each of those times they took us on another ride. In March, they didn't rescind our vote, but they sort of asked us some additional questions and started tinkering with a few things. And then in May or June, I can't remember when, they seem to be there all the time, the Senate passed it and gave us the 5-year extension. With doing that, we're pleased to say that we were granted a 5-year extension, and the governor signed it into law. The extension is June 30th, 2025. But like most sagas, I want you to stay tuned. We never know what might happen in the next session. And again, we appreciate your support. We appreciate you being there. A number of you all were there almost every time we were there. And certainly we note that and thank you for that. So we have an extension to 2025, but there's always people tinkering with issues and with rights in the state. So we'll be continuing to look at that. Let me just sort of say that as we move forward, since March, we've probably been about 75% remote. I had people in the Nashville office. I had at least 3 people in the Knoxville office and the Memphis office. The rest of us were remote, but it took us a while to get up to speed. We had people working remotely, only about 3 or 4 out of our 29 staff people. So it took us a while to get computers out because we were shipping them all over the place and phones to have them work. I will say now that our staff is fully operational and working quite well, and they seem to be in a good stride. However, like everything else, there's always something else. With 29 people, I will let you know that we have had 4 retirements and 6 departures. That's 10 people who have left our organization since January of this year through last week. And for a variety of reasons, some people decided to retire. For a variety of reasons, some people are out. Some people still work for us, but they're on extended absences. So that compounds our ability to function and operate. However, our housing staff was able to close more cases than ever before. And I will let you know that they've worked diligently to deal with housing discrimination. So that's sort of the good news. And by the way, have a similar relationship with HUD. So we do process dual file cases under the Fair Housing Act and the Tennessee Human Rights Act as well. Let me talk a little bit about COVID-19 and some of the implications that we are seeing. And then before I close, I'll just give you an overview of what the agency looks like in terms of its numbers. COVID-19, as you know, guidance was issued by HUD early on, and they looked at a few things that they thought were critical. COVID-19 under the Fair Housing Act, as under Title VII, is considered to be a disability. One of the things that I want to remind people of is that housing providers and the public at large, that fair housing laws protect persons from discrimination, including a variety of issues, and disability is one of those. The other thing is that this disease also seemed to target certain groups of people. It initially targeted the Asian community because they thought it was a disease from China. And my colleagues in California saw a lot of discrimination and refusal to rent to people of Asian descent, whether they were Chinese, Japanese, Korean, or whatever. In New York, they saw similar things happening. Our Asian populations, except for in some metro areas, are not as large as others. So we've not seen any of that, but that does not mean it's not occurring. Then we found out that COVID-19 was affecting the critical workers, and that most of those critical workers in large cities like New York, Chicago, LA, and other areas were African American, and they were dying in larger numbers. So we want to help people understand that they should not that in housing, people should not be targeted because of their race, whatever that may be. Then there's the notion that COVID-19 always puts on a different dress every once in a while, and that you cannot harass individuals who are seeking housing. And anecdotally, we have heard that there are a number of rental providers who are now sexually harassing women and asking for favors. And the favor goes a little bit like this: if you treat me well, we won't evict you. And that's going on across the country in a variety of places. Sometimes we hear about it, sometimes we don't. But I want to share that with you because that too is a violation of the Fair Housing Act. COVID-19 in housing as an employment can take on different varieties because it could be the disability that people perceive COVID-19 is, plus any other factors that are covered by the law. So you have to understand that. So if you hear these things, let us know. We would love to talk with you. And then there's the notion of national origin. These are people who might not be Asian, but who might speak a different language, that people thought they brought it in from whatever country they came from, even though they may be citizens in this country. So we have a lot of things going on with respect to housing. As you know, there is at this point a moratorium on evictions. Don't get too happy. Moratoriums are interesting when they are enforced. However, as the courts start to open, there were some claims in many courts across Tennessee that had started before COVID-19. And when the courts shut down, those actions were in fact put on hold. As the courts start to open, we believe there might be an avalanche of cases that are going to hit the Tennessee courts. So I'm concerned and want you all to be aware that you too may be hearing it. People come to the NAACP for a variety of reasons. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. So some of this, there is small businesses, and I'll just talk about that. Small businesses who have been denied the loans and everything else. Those are also violations of civil rights laws, not necessarily ours, unless there's some federal dollars that come through one of our state agencies for that. And if that happens, it's covered under Title VI if it is done based on race. The other thing, let me talk about evictions. The moratorium on evictions that the CDC has issued will end in December unless it is extended. The governor has also had a moratorium on these through December. But again, we have actions that predate COVID-19, and the courts may take those up, which could create things. The other issue about evictions is that some evictions is that, oh, I'm gonna get rid of that bad tenant, or the tenants I don't like, or the tenants I don't want. Some of those issues could be based on any of the protected classes in addition to disability. So be aware of that. Evictions, also, there's some help for evictions across the state of Tennessee that I want to share. I'm a member of the Supreme Court's Access to Justice Commission. They have been doing a help for Tennessee activity for about the last 2 years, providing legal services for a variety of things in courts and pro bono attorneys, mostly dealing with family law and divorce law. However, they just had an eviction summit on October 1, and they looked at resources across the state to deal with the eviction issues, either through legal services or through pro bono attorneys that may be available in some of the places, and they do have pro bono attorneys across the state. Keep that in mind as resources for you. I'm trying to get a link, and I'll try to get that back to you, but I'm going to give you some information. Access to Justice Commission has a phone number, goes 844-HELP, the number 4-TN. Anybody calls that number and talks to them about needing legal services as it relates to evictions, they'll try to put you in touch with one of the legal services groups if you qualify, or pro bono attorneys that might be available in your area. Pro bono attorneys include West Tennessee Legal Services, Memphis Area Legal Services, East Tennessee Legal Services, and the Legal Aid Society of Middle Tennessee and the Cumberlands. These are legal aid attorneys. They are limited in number, but they are looking at evictions and taking those up. Some of the evictions will not fall under civil rights law. Some of them may. If they fall under civil rights law, we're going to try to take as many as we can in complaints and try to get them done as quickly as possible, including trying to get stays if that's possible through the court. At some point during this time period, what we're finding too is that if individuals are put out of their homes and anything else, it might exacerbate COVID-19 issues, because once they no longer have some place to shelter in place, they've got to find other housing, whether that's with other family members or in crowds, et cetera, which could make them vulnerable to the disease. The other thing is we're finding that there is this notion of harassment against people who are different, whether it's because, and there's racial and ethnic profiling, and they are sometimes perceived to be associated with the disease. In other words, they see people, oh yeah, they got COVID-19 or they have COVID-19. So just beware and just keep us informed. We need to be sure that we are doing what we need to do. We need to be attentive to the individuals who come to us for issues. We need to be attentive to issues related to disabilities, to race, to gender, and all of the others, but those are the critical pieces of what we're doing. And then we're looking at familial status. In some instances, those who appear to be or may not be family status as we see it, so they may be living together in a lot of places. We need to honor and support and not evict out of fear. There's also some additional resources available to landlords to assist them. And also the Access to Justice Commission has that. Every once in a while, landlords want to evict because they need to also survive. So we need to be aware of that. The Tennessee Housing Development Agency, which can be found at tn.gov under Tennessee Housing Development Agency, has resources that are available to landlords and other resources in different counties throughout the state. So that's something that you might want to know as well, because in essence, you might be able to broker a deal between that tenant who might be evicted, who might be able to get resources from THDA, and the landlord, so that you could successfully save someone's housing as well as help THDA save the house itself. That means the landlord's property. If you have issues and other things, you can always go to our website at www.tn.gov/human rights. You will find information on COVID-19. You'll find a link back to the EEOC. I hope it was up there not too long ago, but for HUD for sure. And you'll also find our annual report. And of course, our 800 number is 800-251-3589. Feel free to call us on that. Let me tell you just a little bit about the numbers for us this last year and finish up in a little less than uh, 10 minutes or so. Overarching numbers included about 7,000 inquiries that we received last year, and more than half of those came through our electronic portal. So at that same website, you can go there and file a complaint on the website, hit a button, submit, and it'll come right into our mailbox, and you'll get it. Not a stamp needed, just fill it out and send it to us. We filed 540 cases. We closed 424 cases. We caused 9 cases, which means we're in hearings. That's cases we did not settle. We had 48 implementation plans reviewed in our Title VI programs. We had 4 with issues. They're listed on that website under the Title VI annual report. We had $151,000 in monetary settlements. We had to, however, suspend mediations beginning in March. We have now started mediations again, and we'll be doing those virtually starting in the next 2 weeks or so. And we had 120 partnering organizations, include many of your branches, and through a variety of methods, including advertising, we were able to reach about 206 million people. We will be starting COVID-19 workshops virtually, I believe in December, with Habitat for Humanity, the Memphis location. And we will also be running those for 4 times throughout the year. That schedule will be up soon. And we'll be running other general fair housing workshops on our website starting in the end of November, I believe, November 20th. Look on the website. So we're going to be running 2 of those workshops throughout the year. We just finished an employment law seminar, and I believe it's up and can be reviewed, but I'm not sure. If you go and it's not there, just send us a note, and we'll be happy to try to answer those questions for you. And then I just want to close, but I want to close with something, and this is sort of like one of those things I'm always looking for. What is it? John Lewis, I believe it was last year on the floor of the House, told folks, it says, when you see something that is not right, not just, not fair, you have a moral obligation to say something, to do something. Our children and their children may ask us, what did you do? What did you say? We have a mission and a mandate to be on the right side of history. I think at all times, the NAACP has been on the right side of history. And as we move into this era of voting, I think we can do nothing else to honor John Lewis and to make sure we vote, because he made sure we had a right. And then I will say thank you to the NAACP, because I have the T-shirt that says NAACP vote. Our lives depend on it, and I believe that. Thank you. We'll take questions now.
Well, thank you to both of our panelists. We certainly appreciate the information you've shared with us. We do want to allow a few minutes for the audience to, if they have questions that they would like to ask, either of you to be able to do so. So we're going to open this up at this point and allow those who've been watching and listening to ask questions if they would like. So if you have a question, unmute yourself, and our operator will make sure that you get in to have a chance to ask you a question. Dr. Butler, is there a question? Okay. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to do 2 things. One, before we close, I want to our presenters to prepare to give us a one minute kind of. There's something that you thought of that you didn't get a chance to tell us. You'll have a minute to do that in a few minutes. So get ready for that. I think the other thing I would like to do is for you to share with us during that time when you're doing your 1 minute closing remarks to kind of recap those issues that you cover. I know you both cover some of the same things, but if there's anything that's different between how something is handled, then you can share that with us as well. But give us some idea, some thoughts there about um, anything that you may had planned to talk about, but maybe didn't. So is there a question? Is there a question out there that anybody have that they want to raise at this point?
We have a question from Miss Beverly Staten. Miss Beverly?
Okay.
Work state.
Since Tennessee
Since Tennessee is a right to work state, what prevents an employer from simply saying that what he did was based upon his purview?
You want to take that one, or you want me to take that one?
I get, can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay, and we can both say something. One thing that I'm very happy about with reference to the state of Tennessee, you have a fair employment practice agency. When I was in Alabama, they didn't have one. And so it's a right to work state, but there, I'll say our laws, the federal laws is the baseline, meaning that you can't discriminate against someone. So you may fire someone because you want to, as long as it's not contravening the federal employment anti-discrimination laws. So all those laws that we say that we cover that came in place as of 1964, can't fire someone because you don't like Black people in your workplace. You don't like women in your workplace. You don't like people over 40 in your workplace. That's protected under the federal laws. I'll say that's the foundation, and I'll pass it off to Beverly to take it from here.
And it's also protected under state law. So at some point, even though it's a right to, it's an at-will state, right to work state, whichever one you want to, if you discriminate and there's basis to prove that, it's a violation of the law. So, and we do comparisons and look at comparator information to get there. So they can say, well, I have this right, and we'll say, okay, we want to see your documents. Tell us who you fired. Tell us why you fired. And we want to know their race, their gender, et cetera, to see if there's any violation of the law.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions?
So I would just like to thank the NAACP again for giving me an opportunity to come and talk with you all. I'd like for it to be a collaboration, and certainly as we're doing our close down, if anything comes to mind, please let us know. And this showing up virtually need not be the beginning and the end. You can reach me at delner.franklin-thomas@eeoc.gov. We are looking to partner to be able to provide advice and guidance. My outreach and education coordinator is Deborah Finney, DEBRA.FINNEY at eeoc.gov. She does outreach. If she can't do it, myself or any of our management team can come forward and offer advice, guidance. So if you have stakeholders that are coming in and there are questions that we can answer, we want to be that resource. And I'll say on a personal level, I hold a lifetime membership with the NAACP. I grew up in a family who recognize and know the value of it. And I'm certainly showing up here in my professional capacity, but I am happy to do whatever I can to engage to ensure that we're being a resource.
Thank you.
All right. Let me sort of just share with you all that I think most of you all have my email address. If not, you can also send it to ask@thrc@tn.gov. That is a general mailbox that you can fill up with stuff, and we get to it every day because we have a person dedicated to doing that. That's ask@thrc@tn.gov. So if you need something, want something, do that. You can request us. We'll do virtual trainings as well. Veronica McGraw might be on this call somewhere, but you can also ask for Veronica through email box and she'll get back to you, and also be willing to do some things with you. We'll either host it on our WebEx or we'll meet you on Zoom or whichever platform you choose. I think I've been on, there's a Ring, there's a Teams, you name it, we'll go wherever you need us to go until we can meet in person once again.
Okay, well, I want to thank both of you very much for being with us today. Um, we cannot do our jobs without your help and without your support. So that's really critically important. So to all of the branches that are on tonight, that's on this call, as you hear from persons in your community, you get phone calls or visits or however they may contact you, please keep in mind that you don't have to have all of the answers. There are others there are other resources available who can help reach beyond what we can do as branch presidents, what we can do as state conference vice presidents or state presidents, etc. And these two ladies here head up those offices that can reach far beyond where we can go. They have access to information that we do not have. There are our significant resources for persons who are in need, persons who are in trouble, persons who have issues that they can't handle. So please make sure that you keep that in mind and put them on your list of persons to call or contact or refer people to when you get issues in your office that's not within your purview of dealing with it. Um, and so again, thank you both for being on. It's good seeing you both again. I look forward to visiting with you when time permits and when situations permit.
And Monroe, let me give my best to Gloria Sweetlove in case she's listening, but let her know we're thinking about her even though she's not here tonight. And you know, if you all need something, call Daphne or Gloria, they'll find me.
Okay. All right. We're going to have a 2-minute intermission before the next session, but before this one ends, before this session closes, let me remind you that we challenge you to exercise the power of 5. And that power of 5 says that you need to turn out 5 new voters. You need to volunteer for 5 minutes. You need to volunteer for 5 hours. And you need to volunteer for 5 days to make sure you get everybody you know to go to the polls and vote. Early voting in Tennessee starts next week on the 14th, goes to the 29th. And it's important for persons who have no needs at all to vote, because somebody needs that vote. Someone will benefit from their vote. And so, and there should not be any excuses. If people vote by mail, tell them to go ahead now and request their absentee ballot. And don't wait until the last week before election to mail it back. Fill it out and mail it back as soon as they receive it. But if they don't vote by mail, then they should make sure they vote during early voting. And if they, for whatever reason, choose to wait until the day of the election, use that 5 minutes that you've devoted and you've gotten 5 other people to devote their 5s to, and make sure that we do all we can to get everybody to the poll that's registered to vote in the state of Tennessee. Thank you so much. Take a 2-minute break, a 2-minute stretch, and then come right back for the next section. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, and I hope that everyone can hear me clearly. We welcome you back to this virtual event that we call the Tennessee State Conference, NAACP, the 74th Annual State Convention, Civil Rights Advocacy Training Institute. Vote, our lives depend on it. My name is John Butler. I'm the Vice President of East Tennessee for the Tennessee State NAACP. We're elated that you have stayed on to attend this virtual event this evening. We will discuss financial empowerment workshop. We'll be talking about money as well as wealth. So we have with us Joya, and I apologize if I didn't pronounce your name right, Dinwiddie, who is an Assistant Vice President and Branch Manager for Regions Bank in East Tennessee. She is passionate about community involvement and teaching financial literacy throughout Knoxville schools, universities, organizations, and churches. She studied management and organization development at Spring Arbor University in her hometown of Detroit, Michigan. Her leadership and commitment to community provided her the opportunity to become the inaugural chair for diversity and inclusion for Regions Bank in Nashville, Tennessee. Ms. Dinwiddie brings excitement and enthusiasm to helping people realize their financial goals and dreams. She strives for excellence, is energetic, compassionate, and has a mind for detail and love flexibility. She has shared this quote from Buddha: if you light a lamp for someone else, it would also brighten your path. So I want us to give an NAACP Tennessee style welcome to Miss Joya Dinwiddie.
Thank you so much, Reverend Butler. And thank you everyone for the opportunity to speak to you guys this evening. So welcome, and thank you so much for choosing to spend some of your valuable time today to talk about financial fundamentals. Again, Joya Dinwiddie, I am a branch manager at the East Nashville office. So I'm here located in Nashville, and I'm just excited to be able to present this seminar to the 74th Annual Tennessee NAACP Virtual State Convention. The information I'm going to cover today is invaluable for your financial health. We talked a little bit about it being maximize your wealth, and so that is what we're going to cover today. I'd like to thank Latricia Jemison, who is my community development manager, who gave me the opportunity to speak with you today. In her absence, she has just done a tremendous work for the company, and I appreciate everything that she's done for us. So to get started, we're going to talk all about wealth today and how to accumulate wealth effectively, and how to look at an investment portfolio. And then we're going to go through some key life stages and what you need to be looking at while you're in those life stages. We're going to talk a little bit about investment fraud, because once you've accumulated this wealth, you don't want to lose this wealth. And then finally, we'll wrap up a little bit about wealth transfer. The one thing I do want you to know is that if you've already accumulated this wealth, this information to you is very general. It is. The information I'm going to cover is general. It's not specific. If you need to see someone, this is my disclaimer, if you need to see a credit counselor or a tax advisor, I highly recommend it. But if you feel like you're already there with the wealth aspect, please listen and take notes so that you can pay it forward and give it to someone who is not where you are in your wealth journey. So with that, we'll get started. So when we look at how to grow wealth, we look at, are we making enough money to cover our basics, okay? And then are we saving regularly and investing regularly? Growing wealth oftentimes can seem complicated or even mysterious, but it's not at all, as long as we concentrate on those three things. So when we're looking at reaching our wealth goals, one of the biggest blocks to building wealth is procrastination. So you'll hear me talk a lot about procrastination tonight, and just overlooking small opportunities to save and waiting too long to start, practical habits to build wealth. that is that procrastination, and changing your habits is a way to overcome your procrastination. So if you make enough money and you live well, but you could save more, here are a couple things to consider. So one, you want to make sure you have a cash cushion of about 6 months worth of expenses. It's very crucial. It helps you deal with the unexpected, like the pandemic that we're in now. And we've seen so many lives affected by the loss of income, or not having a savings plan, or having a cushion already set up. So you want to make sure you have about 6 months worth of expenses. And then your core portfolio should be devoted to your retirement investments. You should review it and manage it on a regular basis. So when we're looking at building your investment portfolio, I'm going to just cover a couple different things that you can look at to add money to that investment portfolio. So the first thing is just signing up for automatic savings program. If your bank offers something where you can automatically send money over to a savings account and then hide that account, I definitely recommend that. Reviewing your company's 401k. If you are in a company that has a 401k and you are not matching, then you're leaving money on the table. You want to make sure that you're always participating in your 401k plan. Prepaying any additional amounts on principals to pay down your mortgage is also another great habit. And if you just pick one of these habits and start to use it, that will help you start to accumulate wealth. Find an unnecessary expense and eliminate it. Cleaning up clutter, you could sell some unused items or unused assets, and then repair something instead of replacing it. The next tip I'm going to talk about is what to consider before you are investing. So 3 questions that I typically ask my customers before they're ready to invest is, 1, how long do you have before you need the money? So taking a portion of that money and locking it up so that it can grow, but knowing that that money could be locked up. So you look at an annuity or something that locks your money up for 5 to 7 years. You'll be penalized by taking money out of that. So make sure that whenever you lock some money up, that that's something you can afford to not have around. And then how do I feel about risk, and what about my spouse? So you want to make sure that your assets and your tolerance match up with your spouse, because you don't want to have arguments over money. So always make sure that that risk tolerance and your spouse's tolerance is the same. And then what type of investment interests me today? So by diversifying, by choosing a selection of different types of investments, many find that choosing 4 or 5 or even 10 options to be a good amount of diversification. So picking something that interests you and then investing in that product. So when we're looking at prioritizing our wealth, it's wise to list your priority for your wealth, for your financial goals. So when we look at financial goals, we have short-term goals, medium-term goals, and long-term goals. Your short-term goals are it's up to a year, basically. And then your medium goals are typically 2 to 3 years. And then your long-term goals will be like retirement or paying off a home, which would be 5 or more years. And you first need to sit down and figure out what is it that your goal is, and are you lining that up with how much time it's going to take. So let's start by talking about other financial goals. If you have a pen and a piece of paper, just please jot down a couple things. So you can set aside cash for emergencies, pay off loans like mortgages and auto loans, credit card debt. You may want to start a savings plan for your children, or get disability insurance and life insurance. That's something that is huge, especially in our community, that we don't have life insurance and we don't leave something on as a legacy to our family. And so that's definitely something you would want to come in and talk with a banker about. But when we're looking at those life stages, I'm going to go through 3. The first life stage is growing and building. And so in that life stage, that's when you are establishing a family. The things that you want to think about in this life stage is, what are my kids learning about money management from me? And I think that's a huge part. Growing up I was not taught about money management. We didn't really even talk about it in the home. And so now I have 2 children, and that we talk about it a lot. We have a lot of dialogue around how are you managing just the money that you have. Am I financially prepared to handle an emergency? Very much like COVID-19. Am I ready for this? If another disaster happens, am I prepared? And how much time and money can I afford to give back to my community and help others? And that part is the pay it forward part. You know, am I contributing to my community in a positive way to help others out of their situation? And how can I save for vacations and trips with extended family members? Those are all the things that you're thinking about in that first life stage. The next life stage that we'll run through is looking ahead. And so when we're looking ahead, we've already kind of established wealth, and we have plenty to show for it, and we're ready to look ahead. You may be thinking about how you want to live your life today and planning for what you want your future and your future family to look like going forward. And so you want to first aim for balance. You want to think about your daily activities of work, family, exercise, time spent online shopping. And are you spending your time on the things that matter most to you? If you're not, you need to try to make that balance happen. Next is to live for today. Procrastination can hold you back. Instead, think about things on your financial bucket list that you would like to accomplish today and in the future, and get started with that. Be thrifty. This is the third one. So overspending does not lead to the accumulation of wealth. As long as you continue to overspend, you won't have money. So practice saving on a regular basis, and then monitor when you have splurges. Another great tip that we recommend is take a month and just write down all of your expenses for that entire month. And then once you are able to see where your money goes, then you can readjust your budget to make sure that you can eliminate some of the things that you don't need. Next, be charitable. When you think of being charitable, do you simply think of sharing your financial success? Your time and talent have value too. Now is a great time to consider being generous with your time, talent, and dollars. Educate, teach, help others make it to where you are. Know your direction in life. Consider what drives you in your success. Make sure you are able to answer those questions. Next, we go to the third stage of life, which is redefining your life. So this is the retirement stage. This is when you're ready to work less and play more, and it's time to travel. Have a perfect credit score. This is the time when you should have a perfect credit score. The median FICO score in the US is a 711, but it's not good enough for some. The quest for a perfect score, it was 800. The score now is 900. So now you need to, if you want perfection, you have to get to that 900 credit score. And there are different tips and tools that you need to use to get that credit score up. And those are some of the things that a banker would be able to talk to you about. Paying off your mortgage. Today, just 34% of owner-occupied houses are mortgage-less, according to the Census Bureau. So many hold on to the goal of living in a home that's free and clear. I think that is a great goal to have. And being debt-free. If you're paying off a major debt, like a mortgage is a huge undertaking, there are steps and there are calculators, and I'll go over that a little bit later. But Regis has calculators to help you in your goal to be debt-free. You may want to retire early. And so you ever dream of quitting your job and not having to work anymore? The average retirement age in the US is 61 and rising. According to a Gallup poll, being able to retire early while having enough income producing assets to meet your family's expenses is tough. Next, I'll go over a little bit about what do. We have this money and we have our wealth, but we want to keep it. So what are the things that you need to know about investment fraud? It's great that you are in an investment frame of mind, but investment fraud needs to be on your radar. putting up barriers against various different types of investment frauds are really important. And so I'll cover some of the red flags that come with that. So the very first one, if it sounds too good to be true, then it typically is. So any investment opportunity that claims you will receive substantially more could be high risk. And we see those come out with pyramid schemes and different ways for you to make money that you didn't either work for or it wasn't given. So just be careful with that. Guaranteed returns. Every investment carries some degree of risk, which is reflected in the rate of return you can expect to receive. Another thing they may say, but he or she seems so trustworthy. You can be blinded when a con artist comes across as a likable or trustworthy, credibility or fake. Just check out actual qualifications. If they're offering you to come to a hotel and learn about an investment, you may want to be a little leery about that. Everyone is buying it. Watch out for pitches that stress how everyone is investing in this because that could be, again, too good to be true. Pressure to send money right now. Scam artists often tell their victims that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It'd be gone tomorrow. Again, just be leery about that. The next one I want to talk about really quickly is elder abuse. Many of us have aging parents. I know I do. And I'm always so leery because my father has a home phone. And those old landlines, they know that elderly people have those landlines. And that's when they reach out to them on those phones and try to call them and get them to send money. So there are an estimated 6 million victims of elder abuse annually in the U.S. It is important to make sure that we are watching not only for ourselves, but we're also looking for the vulnerable people in our families. So making sure that they're not getting tied up in any investment. All right, I was just going to pause for a minute to see if we had any questions. Doesn't look like we do, so I'll move on. So the other thing you want to look at when it comes to investment fraud is you want to ask questions. Fraudsters are counting on you not investigating before you invest. Send them off by doing your own digging. I had a lady call me the other day and told me that I owed her some money and I needed to send it. And as I started to ask her more and more questions, she just hung up the phone. But I see in the banking industry, I had a customer lose $1,000 because she was told to get gift cards and send gift cards to make sure that they could take some charges away from her. After she did 5 gift cards, she ended up losing over $1,000. And that money we can't give back because she initiated those transactions. So just be very careful, especially with COVID-19. There are so many scams out there right now to try to take money from people who need the little money that they have. Research before you invest, so understand a company's business, its products and services before investing. Look at the company's financial statements on the SEC EDGAR filing to make sure that they're a reputable company. Know the salesperson. Sometimes checking out the person before you invest is a great idea. Always find out whether their securities salespersons who contact you are licensed and are licensed in your state to sell securities. And be wary of solicited offers. Be especially careful if you receive an unsolicited pitch to invest in a company or see its praise online, but can't find financial information about the independent sources. Any questions so far?
We have a question in the chat.
Okay.
When is it a good time to take annuity payments from your plan if you retire at age 55? And when should you exercise the rider on an annuity if it is variable?
Okay. So when is a good time to take an annuity payment from your plan? Depending on the annuity, like I said earlier, if it's a 5-year or 7-year annuity, if you take money out, you can be penalized for it. It can have penalties. Some of them don't have penalties. When you're 55, they do give you some additional options that you can withdraw from. But I would just definitely, if you purchase an annuity for a 5-year or 7-year term, I would let that annuity run its course and build that money up. And then when should you exercise the riders on an annuity? If it's a variable annuity, whenever those riders, if you need those riders, then you would access them. So some of the riders would be like long-term care. If something was to happen and you were unable to continue to take care of yourself, then that's when you can pull from those annuities. I hope that answered your question.
So in the area where you talked about having aging parents, I had a couple of questions in that area. One is, what's a good way to structure the banking so that you can have access to the account, the power of attorney or healthcare power of attorney can have access to the account, but also it gives, flexibility, because when you set it up, obviously the parent would be, competent and be able to do their own things. But what's the best way to set that up so that it is because sometimes it's a joint account, but that's not what you really want to have. So there are a better way.
Actually, I would recommend a joint account because a POA, a power of attorney, stops at the date of death. So if you don't have that power, if you're not joined on that account, then you have to get letters of attestation or administration and death certificates. But if you're joined on that account, you can continue to use the money as you see fit to take care of the needs that the parent may have after. And then really quick, with power of attorneys, a lot of people think that they have to go to an attorney to get that done. The banks have documents that you can have printed and take to your parent or have the parent come with you. It just has to be notarized.
Okay. So the other question, there may be another phase of life that when you pass away, this may not be the area that you may plan to go in tonight. So I understand. But if I pass away, how do I want to make sure that that I leave something for the next generation or the next generation? What are some of the products that's available to do that?
So definitely life insurance. You definitely want a life insurance product. We also have what we call is wealth transfer. And a lot of those products do have health questions that you have to be able to pass. But the benefit that you pass on is usually pretty substantial. So you can look at purchasing a wealth transfer product for $20,000 where it pays out to your beneficiaries $30,000, right? So it depends on the age, and it also depends on the amount for a wealth transfer.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a great product, especially if you have not, if you don't have life insurance and you haven't already established that. A wealth transfer for anyone is just a great thing to be able to send money on.
So if you're in a joint account with a parent that you are providing, care for and all, and so if they pass away, if it's a joint account, then that becomes your account. But if it's not a joint account, it becomes part of their estate, and you have to go through the estate process.
Right, that's what makes it so much more difficult when you're not. And establishing beneficiaries on your account and payable on death is something that you need to do at any age. So even on your own account, you should always make sure that you have someone payable on death, because then that voids the whole probate process. So if someone is, so it's called POD. So if they are payable on death on the account 30 days after the individual passed, they hand the death certificate over, and then they just empty out that account and give them the money.
So it's not a joint account, but it is payable upon death.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So there's
Yeah.
several different options that you can have. That's why it's so important to talk to a banker and have someone in, you know, in your service that can help you with that type of thing.
And that would be important regardless of what the financial product is to say, okay, what happens upon my death with this wealth product? What's the best way for that to pass on to who I wanted to pass on to?
I say beneficiary reviews. I did it the other day with a 25-year-old. She was on an account just by herself, and I talked to her about her beneficiaries, and she added her husband. She was like, I never even thought about that. I mean, because we don't think about that at that age, but
Right.
making sure you have somebody payable on death is very important.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So we'll talk really quickly just about some options. What are your options when you look at wealth transfers? So here are a few. I'll run through them real quickly. So we have simple gifts. So the 2018 $5.49 million lifetime gift tax threshold set for individual givers, encouraging outright gifting. You take advantage of the generous limits to provide responsible adult children and grandchildren with a portfolio of their own. We have irrevocable life insurance trust. You can consider to use an irrevocable life insurance trust when you purchase life insurance to avoid estate tax. The guarantor, the GRAT, they call it, the guarantor retained annuity trust. The GRAT helps shift future appreciations of contributions of contributed assets to your children at a minimum tax cost. So you want to watch out for that tax that you pass on to your loved ones. I think we got another question. Is there a minimum age for a beneficiary? No, there's not a minimum. As soon as you're able to get an account, you can get a beneficiary on that account. So what steps should I take? So what's your next step? I think you need to be sure to consider making unlimited payments directly to qualified medical and educational providers on behalf of your beneficiaries as another way to build wealth. At age 50, if you don't have an IRA already established, you can have an IRA established with limits that allow you to put more into it than if you know, but those all go by taxes, but you're able to put more into that IRA once you turn 50. So those limits go up. So making sure that you ensure that you're leaving a legacy for your family and that you also have something for yourself. I'll just say that Regions has these seminars. They're offered at no cost. We do these seminars at churches. We do them at universities, small groups. Again, we have over 20 different seminars, and our passion and our goal is to teach these in the community as much as possible. Now that we are virtual, we do have a WebEx. I'm able to do these things on Zoom. So if you aren't looking for some different topics, we have some for students. We have all types of topics. Like I said, we have over 20 different topics and seminars. And then we also have calculators. Everything is available to you at no cost at regions.com. You can always go on there and look at our calculators. We have over 60 different calculators. One that shows you how to calculate to become a millionaire. We have different podcasts and articles. And so that's all available to you at regions.com. There's another question. Okay, this is just talking about being aware of fraud. Yes, yes. Yep.
There is a question, what age is a good time to purchase life insurance for seniors?
For seniors, that does make it a little more difficult to purchase life insurance. You have term policies and you have whole life policies. The older you get, the more expensive it is. That's really it. So I would recommend making sure that our young people are purchasing life insurance now.
Another question I would have is, I know I'm familiar with health savings account. Are there still education savings accounts and other types of accounts if your employer would be willing to work with you on that? What types are out there, and what are the, if you can share, what are the amounts that you can do it, and what's the benefit of doing those things?
So we talked a little bit about education. So that's a 529 plan. That is not through your employer. That's something that you need to purchase on your own. I can tell you, I have a customer that purchased a 529 plan when their baby was 10 months. And when he turned 18, that $10,000 would then turn into $89,000. So, but it has to be used for education. You also can take that if that 18-year-old decides that they do not want to use that education and use that money can be shifted to another person.
Okay. Now, I was speaking of the health savings account where your employer pays into an account which pays your health.
Sure.
It's pre-tax.
Absolutely. So that one I'm not as versed on. I mean, I know they have flexible savings accounts and health savings accounts, and those two are very different. But that would definitely be like a benefit administrator I would talk to about those. Okay. For sure.
So any other questions? So I did not hear a lot of questions about COVID. I know right now there's not well, I don't know what I know about whether there's going to be a stimulus plan or not, or those kind of things. But and I'm not sure if you all participated in the Small Business Administration. So what is the status on those loans now? It was, at one point it was 3 months, then it was 6 months, and then at the end of the year, what's the status on that?
Yeah, so we just found out about the PPP forgiveness just yesterday, actually. So we were waiting on, Congress was supposed to forgive anything 150,000 and below. They have not decided to do that. So right now, you have 24 months from the time that you received the stimulus to pay it back. We are starting to have people apply. I believe that's going to start happening next week. It's going to just come straight to your email and you would apply, and then that goes to the SBA. And then after you apply, the SBA has 90 days to decide if you're going to be forgiven for that or not. But the very key and important part of the forgiveness is because it's going to require a lot of documentation. If you use the money for payroll, all they're going to ask you is to send in that payroll. So that's going to make it easier if that money was just allocated to payroll. If it was allocated to other expenses, then you are going to have that documentation as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But I'm always available if anyone wants to reach out and call me and talk. The other thing I wanted to quickly say is that Regions has invested a lot of money into being innovative when it comes to our technology services. And we now have a new process called a green print. And you can come in and have a financial advisor go over all of your finances, and then it gives you a health score. And that health score lets you know where you're at, and then also builds a plan for you for your financial freedom. So it's a great process.
We have another question from Kimberly Taylor. What section is the How to Become a Millionaire WebEx located on the website?
So if you go to My Green Insights, if you go to regions.com, I wonder, can I share my screen? But I'm going to walk through the process while we're right here. So if you go to regions.com, and then there's a tab called Insights. You click on Insights, And then all the way at the bottom, there's a calculator library. And then that brings up about 60 different calculators. And if we look at the savings calculator, the second calculator is how do I save to become a millionaire? Great calculator.
Super.
But again, under that Insights tab is so much knowledge, a wealth of knowledge that is just for everyone to use and educate yourself on.
Well, you've been great. You've given us a lot of insight and thought. I just want to see if there's any more questions. We won't hold anyone beyond the time that that we have for you to present, but we do want to give opportunity if anyone have any other questions. Hearing none, do want to thank you so much for coming. We have had in our area in Knoxville, where I'm located, we've had regions come out and talk with us on numerous occasions, and each time it's so much information that each time, you know, our bank manager in East Tennessee, Major, passed away, and but he was always there anytime we had a question. So we do thank you for that. So thank you for joining us, and if we were all together, I'd say give her a wonderful hand. So we do thank you for coming and presenting. And as we get ready to close, any closing comments? Joya, any closing comments?
Oh, it's just been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. I'm excited to help anyone or any organization that needs it. I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Thank you so much. And
let me say our NAACP, our Knoxville branch NAACP is at Regions Bank. So that's what we bank at. So thank you so much. You my banker in Knoxville.
Oh, good.
Sister Daphne?
Yes,
anything?
Dr. Butler.
Are you ready for me to close?
Yes, we want to thank everyone for joining us for our first series of virtual sessions on this evening. We ask that you come back and join us on tomorrow at 5:30 Central Standard Time as we kick off our health and wellness session, and then we'll go into our virtual youth and college town hall. The information should have been sent to you. You use the same access link that you used before. So we look forward to having you come back and be with us on tomorrow evening. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. We do have one other question. This is the last one. Is the health check provided by Regions for customers only?
No, it's for everybody. Come and get one.
Amen. I do want to say, as stated earlier, we challenge you to exercise the power of 5. Turn out 5 new voters, volunteer 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days. Don't just vote, bring 5 people to vote with you. Vote because our lives depend on it, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Be blessed.